Harry Potter never gets his letter. No owls, no Hagrid breaking down a door. No trip to Diagon Alley. Just a regular boy in a regular house, growing up completely unaware that he's the only person alive who ever survived the killing curse. That's the timeline we're building today, and by the end of it, you're going to understand exactly how close the entire wizarding world came to losing before the war even started. The Dursleys move first. That's the whole thing. That's the entire timeline, rewritten by one decision from a man who hates anything he can't explain. Vernon gets offered a transfer, a bigger office, a bigger salary, and most importantly, a bigger distance between his family and anything magical. He takes it before Harry's even 1 year old. New town, new house, no forwarding address left behind on Privet Drive. Hogwarts letters aren't addressed like normal mail. They find the student wherever they are, but they're not magic in the all-knowing sense, they're magic in the bureaucratic sense, tied to birth records and old enchantments laid down decades ago. And when a name gets separated from its original address early enough, before the tracking charms fully lock on, the system doesn't fail loudly. It just quietly loses him. Harry grows up in a town nobody at Hogwarts has ever heard of, going by a slightly different last name because Vernon insisted on it, some petty need to erase every trace of the Potters from his life. He's just a kid, good at football, terrible at maths, and occasionally when he's scared or angry, strange things happen around him that he's learned to never talk about because the one time he mentioned the vanishing glass at the zoo, he didn't get dinner for 3 days. By the time he's 11, no owls come. No letter. Nothing. He spends his birthday exactly like every other day, and somewhere in a filing office beneath the Ministry of Magic. A quill that's supposed to write his name into the registry simply doesn't, because the trace on him broke the year he moved. And nobody at Hogwarts double-checks addresses that go silent. They assume the family emigrated. They assume incorrectly that he's being educated somewhere else. Nobody assumes the truth, that the boy who defeated Voldemort is sitting in a Muggle classroom in the Midlands memorizing the water cycle. The strange things don't stop, though. They just start hiding better, because that's what Harry's learned to do with anything about himself that makes people uncomfortable. When Hagrid never comes now, picture a version where the Dursleys never move at all. Same house, same address, same miserable cupboard under the stairs. But this time, Albus Dumbledore doesn't make it to Harry's 11th birthday. It's a small thing that changes everything. A curse from decades earlier, something picked up investigating dark artifacts long before anyone had heard of Voldemort, finally catches up to him 2 years early. Dumbledore dies quietly in his office at Hogwarts, and with him goes the one person who was personally tracking Harry Potter's case. The one man who left a note in his own handwriting reminding the school every single year without fail to make absolutely sure the letters got sent and the visit got made. Without Dumbledore, Harry's file becomes exactly what it looks like on paper. A boy living with Muggle relatives, no magical guardian listed, no special flag attached. The letters do get sent. Hundreds of them, actually, the same way they do for every 11-year-old whose name is due. But Vernon burns every single one the second it hits the doormat. Same as he always planned to, and this time, there's no groundskeeper standing by with instructions to intervene personally if the family doesn't respond. Nobody comes to the house. Nobody breaks down a door. Nobody gives Dudley a pig's tail. The ministry simply marks the file as declined. The same bureaucratic shrug they give any pure-blood family that wants to raise a child outside magical society. Except Harry isn't pure-blood, and nobody's raising him inside anything. He's just a kid whose aunt hates him, growing up under a staircase, and now there's no wizard left alive who remembers that he matters. The boy who was erased. Here's a colder version. What if Petunia doesn't wait around wondering if the letters will come? What if she decides to get ahead of it? Petunia's seen what magic did to her sister. She watched Lily disappear into that world and never fully belong to the family again. And she's not doing it twice. So the moment baby Harry's dropped on her doorstep, she starts building a paper trail designed to make him disappear from wizarding records entirely. A cousin twice removed on Vernon's side, conveniently overseas, conveniently willing to falsify an adoption. Somewhere in a filing cabinet in the ministry, a record gets updated, quietly, corruptly, the way certain things always could be if you knew who to bribe. Harry Potter, it says, deceased age 1, complications following the attack at Godric's Hollow. It's not even that hard to pull off. The wizarding world is still in chaos that first year, celebrating, mourning, rebuilding. Nobody's cross-checking every casualty report from the war. A dead baby who is already presumed likely to be dead raises exactly 0 questions. And Petunia gets exactly what she wanted. A nephew nobody magical will ever come looking for. Harry grows up genuinely believing his parents died in a car crash, the same story canon gives him. Except in this version, there's no correction coming. No Hagrid to tell him the truth at 11, because as far as the system's concerned, there's no truth left to tell. He develops the scar, the strange energy around him when he's upset, but with no framework and no name for any of it. Just a kid who occasionally makes light bulbs explode and has learned it's safer to pretend he didn't notice. A squib in the system. Sometimes the mistake isn't malicious. Sometimes it's just a clerk having a bad day. Every magical birth in Britain gets recorded automatically, tied to the same enchanted quill that eventually writes each name into the Hogwarts registry once accidental magic starts showing up in a child. But the quill isn't perfect, and once every few decades, it misreads the signature entirely, especially in a case as strange as Harry's. A baby who survived the single most powerful curse ever cast and walked away with raw magical residue burned into every inch of him. The quill reads that residue wrong. It logs him not as a wizard, but as a squib. A magical family's child born without any powers of his own. Squibs don't get letters. It's not cruelty, it's just policy. Decided centuries ago by people who assumed a squib attending Hogwarts would only end in heartbreak for the kid watching everyone else learn spells he'd never manage himself. So Harry's name sits quietly in the squib registry, untouched, unquestioned, for years. Nobody at the Ministry connects a squib named Harry Potter, technically living with muggles under a slightly misspelled surname due to a clerical error nobody bothered fixing, with the actual boy who lived, whose file everyone assumes is being handled somewhere else entirely, by somebody else, because surely a case this important wouldn't just be sitting in a drawer. It is. That's exactly where it's sitting. And Harry, meanwhile, feels the accidental magic happening around him constantly. Glass vanishing, hair regrowing overnight, and has absolutely no idea it means the opposite of what the Ministry's paperwork says about him. The attack that was never reported. Not every version of this story is bureaucratic. Some of them are violent. There are still Death Eaters loose in the months after Voldemort's fall, scattered, leaderless, furious. A handful of them know exactly where Harry Potter's file sits inside the Ministry's registry office, because before the war ended, some of them worked there. One night, a small team breaks in, not to hurt anyone, just to erase a name. If they can't finish what their master started, they can at least make sure the wizarding world's supposed savior never gets summoned to the one place that could turn him into an actual threat. They don't touch Harry. They don't need to. They touch the paperwork instead, the one enchanted ledger that automatically generates letters once a magical child turns 11. Harry's entry gets quietly deleted, replaced with nothing. A gap in the records so clean that nobody investigating the break-in even realizes what's missing. Because how do you notice the absence of a name you didn't know to look for? The people responsible get caught eventually, tried for the break-in itself, but nobody ever connects it to Harry Potter because nobody at the Ministry thinks to ask what specifically they were looking for. The gap in the ledger just sits there, permanently, and every year that passes without anyone questioning it, the boy who lived gets a little further from the world that's supposed to be waiting for him. Given up, here's the version that hurts the most, honestly. What if the Dursleys just give him up? Vernon never wanted him. That part's true in every timeline. But in this one, Petunia doesn't fight to keep him out of guilt or obligation to her sister's memory. She just doesn't fight at all. Harry's 4, and after one incident, too many, glass shattering across the kitchen, during one of Vernon's rages, Petunia finally cracks and calls social services herself. Tells them she can't cope, tells them to take him. The wizarding world has no idea this is even possible. Nobody built a contingency for it because nobody imagined the aunt they left him with would voluntarily hand him back into the Muggle system. Harry gets shuffled through foster care instead, home after home, each one a little colder than the last, and every single move takes him further from the address the Ministry has on file. The same way static from a radio gets worse the further you drive from the signal. By the time he's 11, there's no address to send anything to that would actually reach him because the last one on record hasn't been current for 6 years. He's just another kid in the system, quiet, a little strange, the kind of kid who gets moved around so often that teachers stop learning his name before they've even finished learning his face. He doesn't know about Hogwarts. He doesn't know about Voldemort. He barely remembers what his own parents looked like. The Watcher who said nothing. There's someone else in this story people forget about. An old woman on Privet Drive named Arabella Figg, quietly placed there by Dumbledore himself to keep half an eye on the boy next door. In canon, she barely matters, just the cat lady Harry gets dumped on when the Dursleys go somewhere fun without him. But she's not just a neighbor, she's a squib, recruited specifically because she can see the wizarding world without being part of it. And her entire unofficial job for a decade is watching Harry Potter grow up and reporting back if anything looks wrong. Now imagine she actually does her job perfectly for years, and it still doesn't matter because the person she's supposed to report to isn't checking in anymore. Dumbledore's stretched thin running a school, sitting on the Wizengamot, rebuilding a ministry gutted by war, and somewhere in the chaos of that first decade of peace, Arabella Figg's quiet little updates about a boy who flinches too easily and eats too little just stop reaching anyone who can act on them. She writes the letters. She sends the owls. They land in an in-tray that never gets opened because the man meant to read them is drowning in 100 other emergencies that all feel more urgent than one more report saying the same thing it said last month. By the time Harry's 10, Mrs. Figg has genuinely tried everything short of walking into the ministry herself and demanding someone listen. She's not part of that world in any official capacity, though. Just a squib with a house full of cats and a folder of unanswered letters. And there's only so much a woman like that can do against a bureaucracy that's already decided the Potter case is handled. When the letter never comes on Harry's 11th birthday, she's the only person on that entire street who understands exactly what its absence means, and she has no way left to fix it. The Weasleys' near miss hears a version that almost works, and somehow that makes it worse. Arthur Weasley's job at the ministry occasionally puts strange Muggle world reports on his desk, misfiring electronics, odd occurrences near known magical families, that kind of thing. One afternoon, purely by chance, a complaint crosses his desk about unexplained incidents at a house on a street called Privet Drive, filed by a neighbor. Nobody at the ministry takes seriously because she's a squib, and squib reports get filtered to the bottom of every pile automatically. Arthur reads it anyway because Arthur reads everything. And something about the address tugs at a memory he can't quite place. He mentions it to Molly that night, almost as an afterthought, a funny little Muggle mystery to talk about over dinner. Molly, who has never in her life let a strange detail about a possibly neglected child go unexamined, tells him to look into it properly. Arthur promises he will. And then the next morning, an actual crisis lands on his desk instead. A cauldron leak scandal that's about to become a ministry-wide embarrassment, and the strange little report about Privet Drive gets pushed to next week and then the week after that. And then it's just gone. Buried under paperwork the way everything eventually gets buried if nobody forces the issue. Molly asks about it twice more over the following month. Arthur keeps meaning to follow up. It's not malice, it's not even really carelessness. It's just the ordinary, mundane way important things slip through the cracks of busy lives. And somewhere on the other side of that slipped crack is a boy who might have had an entire family of red-headed siblings looking out for him a full decade before he ever needed them to. No voice left to vouch for him. Let's go back to Hagrid for a second, because in every one of these timelines, there's a version where the letters technically get sent, technically arrive, and still don't matter because there's nobody left who'll fight for them to be delivered properly. In canon, it takes Hagrid showing up in person, breaking a door down, standing his ground against Vernon to actually get Harry to Hogwarts. That's not policy. That's one half giant who loved James and Lily enough to make a personal trip. Take Hagrid out of the picture. Maybe he's still recovering from his own injuries, sustained the night Voldemort fell, still grieving, still not cleared for fieldwork, and the letters just become paperwork Vernon burns without consequence. No school in the world chases down a student who doesn't respond after the third or fourth ignored notice. Hogwarts isn't different just because it's magic. Somewhere around September, a professor makes a note that the Potter boys' guardians appear to be declining enrollment, files it, and moves on to the next name on a very long list. There's no dramatic confrontation. There's no moment where the truth breaks through. There's just silence and a boy under the stairs who never finds out. Silence was covering for an entire hidden world. The vault nobody claims. There's a place in every one of these timelines where the truth technically survives, whether anyone's reading it or not, and that place is Gringotts. James and Lily left behind a trust vault, exactly like canon. Gold sitting untouched under Potter family wards, deep beneath the bank, waiting for an heir who's supposed to walk in someday with a key and a letter confirming he's old enough to access it. Goblins don't forget accounts. They don't forget names, and they definitely don't forget gold sitting idle for over a decade, quietly accruing interest nobody's collecting. By the time Harry would have turned 11 in any of these versions, the account manager assigned to the Potter Vault starts noticing something odd. No activity, no inquiry, no Hogwarts confirmation letter ever arriving, requesting the standard student withdrawal every magical 11-year-old's family makes before September 1st. Goblins are meticulous about exactly this kind of anomaly, mostly because unclaimed vaults eventually become legal headaches, and legal headaches are bad for business. A formal inquiry gets filed with the ministry, low priority, buried in exactly the kind of interdepartmental memo that takes months to actually reach a desk with the authority to act on it. Somewhere in that memo is the single clearest piece of evidence in the entire wizarding world that something's gone wrong with Harry Potter's case. An untouched vault belonging to a boy who should be starting his first year at Hogwarts, and instead appears, according to every record anyone can find, to not be enrolled anywhere at all. It sits in a queue. That's the whole tragedy of it, really. Not lost, not destroyed, not hidden by anyone with bad intentions, just sitting in a queue behind 100 other low-priority inquiries, waiting for someone with enough authority and enough curiosity to connect an idle vault to a boy nobody's checked on in years. Gringotts isn't in the business of chasing down clients who don't ask for help. They flag it, they file it, and they move on to the next account. The same way any institution eventually does when nobody on the other end is making noise. 11 years unnoticed. So here's where all of this actually lands. Whichever version you pick, the moved address, the dead Dumbledore, the faked death, the clerical error, the erased ledger, the foster system, the missing messenger, the result is the same story wearing different clothes. Harry Potter turns 11 and nothing happens. No owls at the window, no letter under the door, no Hagrid on the doorstep telling him he's a wizard. Just a birthday like every other birthday, maybe a little worse, because Dudley gets 37 presents and Harry gets nothing, same as always. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Somewhere out there, Voldemort's still gone, but not destroyed. Just scattered into pieces hidden across the country, waiting. The entire war that hasn't happened yet was always going to hinge on one specific person growing up inside a magical education, learning about Horcruxes, learning about sacrifice, learning who he actually is in time to matter. Take that education away, and the pieces don't stop waiting. They just wait longer for someone else to notice them, for someone else to piece it together. And there's no guarantee anyone ever does. The magic that doesn't go away. Growing up without Hogwarts doesn't mean growing up without magic. It just means growing up without anyone to explain it. Harry, in every one of these versions, still has accidental bursts, still has moments where fear or anger bends the world slightly around him. Glass repairing itself, a bully falling over for no reason, hair growing back overnight after a bad haircut. Without a wizard around to name what's happening, he does the only thing an 11, 12, 13-year-old can do with something that terrifying. He buries it, tells himself it's coincidence, tells himself he imagined it. Kids are remarkably good at convincing themselves the impossible didn't happen, especially when the alternative is believing there's some kind of freak nobody will ever explain to them. By 16, he stopped noticing the pattern entirely, mostly because the moments have gotten rarer, not because the magic faded, but because he spent 5 years training himself not to feel things strongly enough to trigger it. It's the saddest version of control anyone could ask a child to learn, suppressing an entire piece of who he is because nobody ever showed up to tell him it was something to be proud of instead of something to hide. There's a cruel irony sitting underneath all of it, too. Every wizard who's ever struggled with wandless, untrained magic will tell you the emotion behind it is the whole engine. Fear, grief, desperation, love pushed past the point where it can stay contained. Harry has more raw power sitting untouched inside him than most fully trained wizards ever access in their lives. A side effect of surviving the killing curse as a baby that nobody in any of these timelines ever explains to him. And instead of a wand, a professor, and 7 years of guided practice, what he gets is a lifetime of quietly convincing himself none of it's real, which means the single most naturally gifted wizard of his generation spends his entire life believing he's ordinary, because ordinary is safer, and safer is the only lesson anyone ever actually taught him. Someone else has to do it somewhere. A war is still coming, whether Harry knows about it or not, and prophecies don't wait politely for the person they're written about to show up ready. Voldemort's followers start regrouping years earlier than they did in canon because there's no boy who lived making headlines, no symbol of hope keeping the wizarding world's guard up. It's quieter this time, more patient, and infinitely more dangerous because nobody's watching for it the way they should be. Neville Longbottom, the other boy the prophecy could have meant, grows up the way canon always hinted he might have if the timeline had shifted just slightly. Raised by Augusta, pushed hard, expected to be more than he believes he is. Without Harry around to share the weight of what's coming, every ounce of it lands on Neville instead. And he spends his entire time at Hogwarts slowly, painfully growing into someone capable of carrying it, the same transformation canon gave him in year 7. Except here, it has to happen years sooner, because there's no version of this war where somebody doesn't eventually have to stand in the gap. It doesn't happen quickly, and it doesn't happen cleanly. Neville spends his first 3 years at Hogwarts exactly the way he does in every other version of this story, forgetting passwords, melting cauldrons, terrified of his own house mistress. Nobody's whispering that he's the chosen one in the hallways, because without Harry's fame pulling focus, Neville's the only name left attached to the prophecy, and the whispers land on him early and often. Some of it breaks him a little, most of it eventually builds him. The same slow accumulation of small, brave choices canon always used to explain how a boy who couldn't remember a toad's name grew into someone who stood in front of a sorting hat and told Voldemort exactly where he could shove his offer. Ron and Hermione still meet on the train. That part of the story is stubborn, apparently, happening almost the same way no matter which version of Harry's timeline you pull on. But without a third seat filled by the boy with the scar, their friendship forms differently, quieter, less defined by rescuing each other from trolls and staircases, and each new catastrophe Harry usually drags them into. Hermione still becomes the smartest witch of her age. Ron still spends a decade underestimated by everyone, including himself. They just end up standing next to Neville instead, filling in the gaps his self-doubt keeps carving out. The same roles they always played, just for someone else's story. He does it without ever knowing there was supposed to be someone standing beside him. He does it not knowing the name of the boy who was supposed to share the fight. The boy's still out there somewhere, waiting tables or fixing cars or just living an ordinary, unremarkable life, completely unaware that a war got fought and won, partly in his name, by someone who had to become the hero because the actual one never got the letter that would have told him who he was. Voldemort still falls eventually because some things about this story refuse to change, no matter how many variables you shift underneath them. But it takes longer. It costs more. There's no invisibility cloak passed down at exactly the right moment, no Marauder's map memorized since second year, no Godfather breaking out of Azkaban to fill in for a father who couldn't be there. Neville does it with what he has, which is less than Harry ever had. And somehow, against every reasonable expectation anyone ever set for him, it's enough. And maybe that's the part that stays with you longest. Not the war, not the Horcruxes, not even Voldemort finally falling to a wand that isn't the one prophecy expected. It's the quiet, ordinary man somewhere in England, 40 years old, watching the news one day, seeing a strange story about unexplained events at a school called Hogwarts he's never heard of, feeling something faint and unnamed stir in his chest, and having absolutely no idea it's the sound of his own forgotten life, calling out to him one last time, decades too late to matter.